Section 2 is your fruit trees. So question number 6 is, can you tell us more about the carob trees you have on your land? Also, I know you mentioned it is not allowed to cut any of these carob trees down. Even if you own the land, it is forbidden. It's part of the law.
It's illegal in Cyprus to cut down a carob tree.
Okay.
I guess because it's food for everything and it's a national tree. You can trim it back, so you could trim bits off, and it makes very good firewood. One of the best firewood you can get, but it's illegal to cut it.
You're allowed to trim it, but you can't take the whole tree out or cut it down. So while we were going around your homestead, I noticed you have quite a lot of carob trees, and you mentioned that you give the carobs to somebody to feed their animals. So is there any other methods that you can suggest in using the carobs? Because I remember taking a bite of a carob and I was absolutely mind blown because it tastes like a caramel chocolate. So yeah, that was awesome. And by the way, I do have the seeds, so I'll probably grow a small carob tree here, but I've been told that it takes years for a carob tree to actually develop fruit.
Carob trees can reach up to 10 metres. The flowering time is July to October, when first the catkins appear hanging from the mature branches. By the end of the summer, the mature pods are 10 to 30 centimetres long, flat and bright. They actually say they look like a curved goat's horn. Each pod contains a number of flat, shiny brown seeds. It was used to weigh gold. No matter what size the pods, every single seed inside is the same size and weight. And you've heard the term carat gold. Well, that comes from the term carob gold. And it's also, well, the carobs are known as Cyprus gold. It is said there are so many carob trees in Cyprus. There is a carob tree for every man, woman and child living here. The local sayings say, to rest under an olive tree will give you a peaceful sleep with colourful and happy dreams, whilst to sleep under a carob tree will be restless and liable to give you nightmares. Because harvesting carobs was once a main source of income for many villages, it is illegal to cut down completely any carob tree. They are usually harvested with long bamboo poles to knock them out of the trees, but I do mine by hand. Apart from eating them raw, and the farmers often would go in the fields and chew on them as something to sustain them whilst they're working, they could be used in cookery to replace chocolate and in many other ways in cooking, such as when making chocolate brownies, but they're also used and exported for the use in cosmetics, particularly lipsticks, gramophone records they were made for, also paper and textile industry, made into toffee and given to animals for good, healthy, glossy coats. So goats and horses and dogs are particularly fond of them. The soil around carob trees is always very rich in nutrients. They make excellent firewood, and also they could be made into charcoal. And of course the leaves are very good when they fall off the trees to use in your hugelkultur or your compost.
Question number 7 is, besides eating all your fruits you grow, is there other methods you use your fruits, like your figs, your prickly pears, your prunes, and all the other fruits that you have on your land?
Our olives are only for olive oil. We do not have any eating types here. We don't actually like the taste of olives anyway. So all of our olives are used to process into our own olive oil. On the whole, most of our fruit that we grow is picked from the tree and eaten as is the best way. Oranges and mandarins are juiced, and a lot of our fruit we also make smoothies from or add to recipes. When you have too many lemons, of course you make lemonade. Of course they're also a health benefit, and I use them to make infusions and teas. Of course lemons can be used to make cleaning products and other frugal remedies. I also make my own beauty products. If I do have a glut of fruit, then I will make them into jams and marmalades. And of course there's nothing better than to make things into pies and crumbles. And a little fun fact for you, that in Cyprus we traditionally eat almonds when they are still green, when the shell is soft, but we prefer them much more the more traditional way of having the nice hard shell and then cracking them to eat as a nut. And we use remnants of all our trees, leaves and branches for hugelkultur.
Question number 8, Dawn, is I notice you have loads and loads of olive trees on your land. Tell me, what do you use your olives for? Because I know that we were going through the second section of your land and there was a few olive trees on there, but that last bit of land, there was just olive trees all over. Besides having all these beautiful olive trees, what do you use all your olives for?
We have an upper olive grove, a lower olive grove, and then we have lots of random olive trees planted all over the rest of our land. At last count it was 86 olive trees, but I'm always planting more and more sprout up. It's something that grows quite naturally if an olive falls on the ground. All our olives, as I said, are for making olive oil. That is the only use. And in Cyprus you can choose to sell your olives to the olive mill, or you can have them pressed to make your own olive oil. In hard times we sell the olives for them to press, and in good times we keep all the olive oil that's pressed there and we pass on to friends. We are not allowed to sell it wholesale without special licenses.
So then that section is done. My next section is called Culture and Traditions. So question number 9 is, how does homesteading in Cyprus differ from what you see in other countries? Because when I was there, I noticed the climate was so much different to the climate back here in the Southern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, we've got humidity, but not as bad as Cyprus. That was such an intense heat for me that I couldn't fathom how the plants in Cyprus grew, or even the vegetation. What I did learn was that the trees and the vegetation in Cyprus had to adapt to the way of Cyprus.
Well, apart from the obvious differences such as climate, I can grow here all year long, and I grow in water bottles and start spring seeds off in the middle of our winter. So I adapt, and that's another reason I do hugelkultur, because no matter how hot or how cold your land becomes, your seeds still germinate and everything's protected in the straw. The other main difference for me personally is I live on a mountainside and there is absolutely zero soil because of that. It's all rock. So I grow in raised beds, or that's why I do no-dig hugelkultur. So I have to provide my own soil, whereby I create my own compost. I do not ever buy in soil. But the main difference, I would say, is homesteading isn't a thing in Cyprus. Yes, people grow crops and they farm crops for restaurants or for selling, but homesteading as a person is not a thing. Why is that, you may ask yourself? Well, the reason for that is because you have huge families in Cyprus, And one part of the family will grow, let's say, their potatoes. Another part of the family might on their land grow the fruit. So each part of the family grows a different thing or few things, and then they disperse it throughout the family. There's no such thing as you see on YouTube as homesteaders. That is not a thing in Cyprus. It is family orientated to share with the family. Of course, you get people that grow a little for themselves, but not on this kind of scale for preserving and for the future of self-sufficiency. And with this, I grow my own seeds and share my seeds out. So whereas you will see lots of YouTubers on channels in England or America and you'll share your tips and your growing zones, you'll be very hard pressed to find a proper homestead in Cyprus. And the other main difference, of course, is what we can grow. I can grow basic tropical fruits and things like this, and I can also go the other extreme and grow a few crops that like milder weather, as long as I grow those in our winter. We never have frost or snow in this part of Cyprus, so it's quite good to find out the different things that I can grow. And as I say, in the future I would like to grow more tropical fruits and see how they fare. We are in the Mediterranean, far from Europe, and this gives us the really good climate to experiment and see what we can grow. I am also a high altitude, but as I say, never frost or snow, so I will keep experimenting.
The last question in this session is question number 10. What local traditions or knowledge have you influenced the way you garden and live?
Well, firstly, living in the middle of an abandoned village, I wanted to live the traditional Cyprus way of the older days. So that's being self-sufficient, self-reliant, and using what there is around me. It was important for me to know the history of the country I lived in and how they used to live. There is nothing worse than being ignorant of the country's history you're in and also not speaking the language, which I found to be very important for me to learn. I immerse myself in Cyprus life and Cypriot people. We are always exploring our island, finding new places and keeping quite off the tourist trap. As well, we go to the touristy places as well, but we want to see the undiscovered side of Cyprus that tourists don't know about. I find places I can suggest to our volunteers that come where they can see proper crafts still happening today rather than buying the tourist trap type of places items from there. The first thing I learnt from gardening was there is a use for absolutely everything, sometimes even the debris parts that some people would throw away. So I looked into how to grow everything in my garden and what to do with it and other ways it is used. I eat all local foods, and this is another reason why it's important to be able to speak Greek or Cypriot so you know what you're eating, and you can also pass on and share the information of the foods you have. And often I will have my volunteers trying all the new foods, and then when they go to restaurants they then like to order them. I've become very interested in old crafts, and it is my goal to further involve myself in the experience of having a go at all these crafts. We regularly attend all the different festivals and traditional celebrations, whether they be religious, Cypriot or just cultural. I've learnt how things are processed from start to finish, from growing and beyond. And I've also learnt how to do some Cypriot dances and some Cypriot songs, such as the Cypriot version of Happy Birthday, which is not just your normal Happy Birthday song translated, and I did sing that on one of my lives. All the knowledge I've learnt has really made a difference, influenced me as a person, and I've grown in my own respect too. So, Yamas to Cyprus.